Hello everyone, myself Dr. Alpa K. Patel. I am Assistant Professor in Botany, SICS Degree College, Ambernath. Today I will going to deliver a talk on use of plants in environmental restoration. Now, if we are observing today's scenario, we will see that the environmental restoration, which always aims to revive ecosystem that have been degraded by industrialization, urbanization, mining, deforestation, or other agriculture practice. So we can say that today's scenario, environment is harmed by so many things. Now, if we are observing the role of plants, so the plants are very important. They play very important role. I can say very crucial role for saving the environment. There are various ways through which plants can save the environment ecosystem. Very first is stabilizing soil and prevent the erosion, improving of soil fertility, absorbing the pollutants and heavy metals from the pollutant sites and provides the habitat for the wildlife and reintroduce the biodiversity. Now, from this, bioremediation is one of the major process through which we can use the living organisms like plants, algae, fungi, bacteria, and their enzymes to detoxify, degrade, and remove the pollutants from the soil, water, and air, and restoring the environment back to its natural habitat. Now, principles which are play very important role. They are microbes or plants utilizing these pollutants as a food and energy sources and transform them into the less toxic form. So we can say that bioremediation is the process through which we can transform this pollutant from high toxic level to less toxic forms. Work by natural metabolic pathway like oxidation, reduction, methylation, hydrolysis. These are the pathway through which this process occurs and convert into the less harm toxic form. And third, we can use by stimulating or engineering by the humans, and is human and genetically engineered plant that we can also use. Now, from which phytoremediation, it is a type of bioremediation where we are using only plants to remove or neutralize the contaminants from the polluted soil or water and clean the environment, and it is specifically known as phytoremediation. Now here there is a various categories of the types. We will see one by one. The first, for the metal contamination. Now metal is a very toxic form of pollutants which harms the ecosystem badly. So very first is phyto extraction. Now in this particular process, plant absorbing the metal contaminant through its root and move to the aerial parts like stem and leaves. So hyper accumulators are often used in this particular process through which enhanced capacity of extract the contaminant from that surrounding will increase. So the plants are then harvested and discard appropriately. So it may be possible to recover the original metal from the plants. So here the example is Brassica gentiana, that is the Indian mustard, for the contaminants like lead, cadmium, and nickel. Second is rhizofiltration. Now in this process specifically which occurs for the groundwater remediation, in this process the contaminants are extracted by using absorption through roots directly and indirectly through the adsorption process. So here contaminants are attached to held by the roots, and plants afterwards they have been grown in the clean water, they are transported to the contaminated water side, and after then when they get saturated they are harvested and the new ones are planted. So here the roots are playing very important role. The example is sunflowers, which is very much famous for the absorption of radioactive isotopes. Phytostabilization, here In the case of phytostabilization, plants are utilizing to hold the soil and water contaminants or reduce their mobility through the surrounding environment. This is accomplished by contaminant absorption and adsorption through the plant roots or by decreasing soil erosion and wind blown dust. So for metal, we can use this particular phytostabilization which do not biodegrade, and it is a very effective method for preventing the spread of groundwater or surface water. Now here the example which is used is vetiver grass which stabilize the arsenic and heavy metals. Next type is phytotransformation. Another, it is also called as phytodegradation. Now in this process the plant absorbs and break down the organic chemicals in the contaminated soil and groundwater through its metabolic processes. So here in the picture you can see that how this plants absorbing the contaminants, and here in the broader ways explains that it is gets degraded. Okay, so here the poplar trees degrades the trichloroethylene TCE. Phytovolatilization. Now name itself indicate the plant absorbs the contaminant and release them into the atmosphere in the less harmful form. So here you can see that diagram, the contaminants are absorbed and it is a degraded fragments. Okay, and after degradation they are just coming out in the atmosphere in the less harmful form, and uptake of contamination by the takes place by the phytovolatilization process. So here the plants which are used as willow trees for the selenium. Now this is the combined photograph which shows rhizosphere bioremediation or plant assisted bioremediation. Plant stimulating the growth of microorganism in the area around the root called as rhizosphere, and through the release of natural substances this microorganisms such as yeast, fungi and bacteria degrades the contaminants through their metabolic processes. So plants are very helpful to degrade, or you can say contaminants, and again they are transforming into the less harmful form. In the compact diagram, the first is rhizofiltration, phytostabilization, phytostimulation, phytoextraction, phytovolatilization and phytodegradation. So here this diagram is very important as it shows the different types of. Next is natural plant bioremediator. The certain plants are called hyperaccumulator. They are having the capacity cope up with the excess of heavy metal and sequestering them into the vacuoles like bubbles. Sometimes these plants also combine with the pollutant with another molecule called as chelation. The form is called chelation. Organic acids often serve in this particular role, like citric acid, for example, surrounds and detoxify the cadmium. Malic acid detoxify the zinc. So here very organic acids are also helpful to detoxify the heavy metals. Here the list of some plants which are very friendly to the environment for the restoration, specifically phytoremediation process. The six process which we have just seen. The very first example is Indian mustard, Brassica junctia, vetiver grass, Hypovogon zenadians. Then next is sunflower, Helianthus annuus, removes the lead and uranium. Poplar trees, populous species absorb and degrade the organic solvents. Willow trees, effective for heavy metals such as cadmium and zinc organic pollutants. Next, Indian goosegrass accumulates the chromium from the tannery wastewater. Alfalfa, the grass which is very important, good for the phyto extraction of selenium and organic compounds. Then phragmites, that's the phragmites of strasses used in a wetlands, absorb the nutrient and organic contaminants. Water hyacinth Ecornia absorbs the heavy metals like mercury, arsenic, and lead. And duckweed Lemma minor removes the nitrogen, phosphorus, and heavy metal. So these are the few list of plants which are using for absorption of various heavy metals. Fully we can use this particular plants if we are observing in our surroundings some areas which are polluted through the heavy metals. So with respect to that, we can grow that plants nearer to that area, and we can transform that area into the less toxic form. So it will be good for the flora and fauna of that area. Advantages of phytoremediation, as it's very eco-friendly, it is cost effective, and aesthetically we can use this. It can be used to clean up the large variety of contaminants also. And the very important thing is that metal which is absorbed by the plants may be extracted and may be harvested from the biomass, and it can be recycled. It may reduce the entry of contaminants into the environment by preventing their leakage into the groundwater system. And phytoremediation takes less time and do not disturb the natural surrounding contaminated site also. So these are the advantages. Few disadvantages. Very first is relies on a natural cycle of plants, so it is a time consuming very first. Second is it works best when the contaminants in the within a reach of the roots. Suppose it is out of the reach of the roots, then it is very harmful. We cannot plant cannot absorb that particular contaminants. Some plants absorb a lot of poisonous metal and making them potential risk to the food chain if the plant is consumed by some animals. So these are some disadvantages. We have to take the measures by taking care of these things. So thanks to all.